Hey guys, Jay Nickel here, aka The Mindful Hunter. I'm just getting ready to go on a backcountry bear hunt, so I thought this would be a good opportunity to do a breakdown of the gear I take and why I make the choices that I do. In addition to that, I threw up a poll on Instagram to see if there were any particular topics that people wanted me to go in depth in on. And I got 3 or 4 requests, so as we get to those pieces of gear, I'm going to go into a bit of additional detail. So, first things first, arguably one of the most important pieces of gear that you take with you, your pack. I choose the Kifaru Fulcrum for my main pack, and in fact, except for backpack cardio, it's the only pack that I use. Some people might think it's too big. The pack by itself is about 7,200 cubic inches. I throw a guide lid on top of it, gives me another 1,200 inches, and then with assorted pockets and stuff, I think I'm actually about 9,000 cubic inches total, which is ridiculous by most people's standards. Now, here's the thing that I like about the Fulcrum in particular. Even though it's a particularly large pack, it has these 2 wings, one on each side. So when I decide to put it in day bag mode, like it is now, I just compress the entire main sleeve, and then I just day pack out of these 2 wings and my guide lid. So even though the pack has the capacity for 9,000, it collapses down into like a 2,400 cubic inch pack really easily. And I'm of the opinion, more pack is better than less pack. If I'm crying and whining about an extra 6 to 12 ounces on my pack, I need to get my ass in gear and get in better shape. That's not a 6 to 12 ounces to shave, in my opinion. I would much rather have a pack that feels like when it's fully loaded with 80 pounds, it feels like 80 pounds. Whereas you go with an ultralight bag, you put in 80 pounds, it's gonna feel like 120 pounds. I have packed out half an elk in that. I've packed out entire deer. I've packed out camp with deer. I have loaded that thing to the brim multiple times. 0 failures, always felt super solid. One more point I wanna make about the pack. I'm personally not a big meat shelf guy. Because I film myself and I got a lot of extra gear, I would rather a gigantic main compartment that has the compression capabilities and the structural capabilities of actually being attached to the frame the way that it's supposed to. I bring a contractor bag for my meat, I put my quarters in that, and I put it right in the main sleeve, put my camp gear on top of that, and I hike all out in one go. In my experience, it's been the best bet. Now, I'm just gonna start going across this table and talking about stuff as I get to it, because I'm not really sure what the best way to approach this is. I've got optics right in front of me, so let's start with that. I've laid out 2 potential solutions here for glassing. I have an ultralight setup, and I have a lightweight setup. First, let's talk about the ultralight setup. This is an Outdoorsman's medium compact tripod. Now, it weighs about 2 pounds by itself. And then I have the Z seat here from Thermarest. So, super lightweight. Only problem is you have to sit on your butt to glass. This does not get big enough to sit on a rock or to kneel or to sit on a stool. And I've noticed one of the limitations is when you get up to your glassing knob, if there's high grass or shrubs or cactus because you're in the Southwest, you could also, the way the hill rolls out in front of you, sometimes you want to sit up that extra 12 to 18 inches so you can see out over the things in front of you. This is somewhat limits your ability to do that. However, super lightweight, super stable. I will also say I prefer aluminum tripods to carbon. The rationale for this is that aluminum is more stable, less wind shake, and to be honest, one of the most popular tripods right now, the CRI 733 CF, is the exact same weight as this guy right here and same height as this guy right here. It's carbon fiber, this is aluminum. This is more stable, has better locking mechanisms, fewer points of failure, all around a better tripod. Now, that being said, I think the CRI runs $250 US, this runs $500 US. So you get what you pay for. So if I'm going ultra lightweight, if I'm going in for more than 3 or 4 days at a time and I have to bring all my food, or if I only think I'm gonna be doing minimal glassing, this is my setup. I just recently upgraded to this tripod, so I would have a secondary choice. And in addition to that, I bought this. This is the Hillsound BTR glassing stool. It weighs, I think it's 12 ounces altogether. Super easy to set up. Simply unclip it, fold it out, extend all 3 legs, and you have an 18-inch stool, just like that. That weighs less than a pound. When it's fully spread out, the legs can't go in. All you do is collapse it, legs go in, and you wrap the strap back around. So, sub 1 pound. Now, the difference between this tripod and this tripod is 1 pound, but I think this tripod goes up to 40 inches or something, and this one goes up to 61. So you can actually, I'm 6'1", and I can stand with this tripod with this particular head on it. So I'm gaining an extra pound to go up to the tall tripod, and I'm gaining an extra 12 ounces. So altogether 1 pound, 12 ounces extra weight. The head is the same because this is the Outdoorsman's pan head, and either I would have it on this tripod or I would have it on that tripod. And this is a 10-ounce head. As far as I'm concerned, this is the lightest, most stable tripod head on the market today. There are other options that give you more fluidity, like of motion. This one can be a little bit herky-jerky, and it doesn't, depending on how heavy a spotter you put on it, you kind of need to lock it, unlock it, move it, lock it, unlock it, that type of deal. But there's really no other comparison as far as weight to stability ratio goes. So on this particular hunt, this is the setup that I'm going to be taking with me. So now that we have tripod out of the way, let's talk glass. My main binoculars that I carry on me are the Zeiss Victory SF 10 by 42s. I just upgraded to these last January. I can't say enough about them. In fact, I did an entire video just on these. If you're interested, just look back in my YouTube history. Now the second pair of binoculars that I'm contemplating bringing are these Swaro 15 by 56 SLCs. These things are a beast, man. They are super amazing for tripod-based glassing when you've got a lot of ground to cover. So I'm kind of trying to make up my mind right now. I may actually just bring these and the spotter. I'm not going to get into details right now, but this could turn into a bow hunt or it could turn into a rifle hunt. If I have access to the high country and it's going to be a rifle hunt, I'm going to take the 15s and the spotter. If it turns out it's going to be an archery hunt, I may just take the 10s. I might not take the 15s or the spotter because I'm probably going to be in lower country. There's going to be more timber and not as much glassing opportunity. So here's the deal. There are no hard and fast rules for what the best glassing setup is or which optics you should take on a hunt. Best case scenario, you got a few different pieces of glass to choose from. Personally, right now, I've got a Zeiss Victory Harpia 95mm, the Swaro 15 by 56s, and the Zeiss 10 by 42s. I'm actually waiting for my Harpia to come in from the States, and it can't show up right now because the border's closed, so a buddy is going to let me borrow his Swaro 95mm spotter if I need it. So to recap, my glassing setup will be the Outdoorsman's tall tripod with the pan head. I will be taking either the 10 by 42s or the 15 by 56s, and I may or may not be taking a spotter depending on the country that I'm going to head into. Next piece of gear is a little frivolous, and some people may argue about this. That's cool. It's your own opinion. Kindle Paperwhite. It's super light and it's got hundreds of books on it. You never know when you're going to be stuck in your tent in the rain for a few days, or sometimes it's nice to take a break from glassing. Your eyes are starting to bleed out of your head. At least if you're sitting there reading a book instead of napping, you're still aware of the country, and if something, is moving around a few hundred yards away, you'll likely pick it up out of your peripheral vision. So I really like this. If there's just a ton of good uses to have a book around. Sometimes it's hard to sleep in the backcountry, and the Paperwhite doesn't need a light. So it's actually like the self-backlit. That's why I like this particular model, because then I don't have to worry about burning out my headlamp juice or any of my other battery-related devices. And if you go into the woods with this thing fully charged, it will stay charged literally like 6 months. The last thing you're gonna have to worry about is battery power for this. Okay, up next, let's talk shelter. This is one of the topics somebody wanted me to dive in deeper, and they were like tent or bivvy. I'm actually gonna go ahead and make that even more complicated. I'm gonna say you have 3 choices available to you. You have a tent, you have a floorless shelter, and you have a bivvy. Let's go over the pros and cons of each. If you are above tree line and it's cold and or wet, a tent is your best option. If it is cold but you're under tree line and you have a floorless shelter with an ultralight stove, that's your best option. If it's going to be really dry, then a bivvy is your best option, and you're going to be moving camp from day to day. Now here's the limitations. Tents tend to weigh a lot more than floorless shelters, and bivvies are extremely constricting. So I'm 6'1", 240 pounds. I did a backcountry elk hunt last year that I bivvy hunted for the first half of, hated it. It poured rain one night. It is essentially like being stuck in a rubberized coffin. It was one of the most claustrophobic experiences of my life. I will never, and everybody was like, well, you're supposed to put a bivvy underneath another shelter. My argument is, if you're gonna take another shelter or another tarp with you, why even bring the bivvy in the first place? You're then essentially carrying two shelters for no reason. The counter argument to that is it's additional water protection for your down bag. I would come back to that and say if you set up your initial shelter correctly, you shouldn't have to worry about water protection for your down bag. Plus, modern downs like Down Tech and other hydrophobic downs don't require as sensitive a treatment as the old downs used to. All that being said, if you put a gun to my head and said you can only have one shelter for the rest of your hunting career, what would it be? Floorless shelter. I like the versatility, I like the size, I like the lightweight, I like the fact that I can put it up with trekking poles, I like the fact that I can combine it with an ultralight stove, which I have the Smith cylinder stove from Kafaru. So, Kafaru Mega Tarp comes in at less than 2 pounds. It's a palace for one guy in the backcountry. You could fit 2 people in it if you needed to. I have, it totally works. What I'm trying to say is it's probably a little more than I need, but here's the deal. I'm not sponsored, I own all this gear and I have to buy all this gear. So much like the backpack, I would rather be overstocked and overbuy and have something a little more than I need that might be 7 to 8 ounces heavier than the exact perfect match, but it's a much more versatile piece of gear. I can use it in a variety of circumstances, and it provides a better solution even though it might be slightly heavier. They've actually discontinued the Mega Tarp right now. They have a Super Tarp, which is a little bit smaller, and then they jump up to a Sawtooth, which is like a hybrid TP option, which would be good for 2+ people. Seek Outside has some great options. There's lots of great floorless shelters. I find a lot of the reasons people don't want to be in a floorless shelter are flawed. People worry about rain coming in, wind blowing in underneath, just lots of those types of things. And the fact of the matter is if you take the time and you set your shelter up properly and you pick an appropriate location to set it up. I've been in this particular shelter for 4 years. I have never had rain come in. I've never had wind blow underneath when I didn't want it. That's the other benefit. In extreme heat, you can actually lift all the edges with the pegs and get a nice breeze coming through. And when you don't want it, you peg it down even tighter and you just kick some dirt or snow or anything up over the edges and it'll form a nice barrier around the outside. Another benefit of most floorless shelters is that they have detachable annexes. So I can take off one or both of the annex and turn it into a complete blow-through shelter, again, if it gets too warm. So I'll use that as an opportunity to segue into my trekking pole of choice, because I actually need these 2 trekking poles to put this floorless shelter up. Also, I can cut 2 branches that are 135 centimeters long, and that totally works to hold up the shelter. I've done that as well. I like these because it's easier. I know how long they are. They're perfectly straight. They're lightweight, and I'm going to be carrying them anyways. So I use the Black Diamond Cork Alpine Ergos, I believe they're called. Listen, no trekking pole is perfect. The lighter they get, the weaker they get. The stronger they get, the heavier they get. I've tried a bunch of different ones and they all seem to have their own individual issues. These are as good as any other. What I'm saying is I don't have a particular recommendation. I see everybody saying this one is the best and that one is the best, and they're usually sponsored by whatever fucking company is paying them to say that they're the best. Go with something reasonably lightweight. Another really interesting option that's coming out a lot, like these ones here, are a hybrid aluminum carbon combo. So the main shaft of these trekking poles are aluminum, and then the two extendable posts are carbon. So you get a really nice strength to weight ratio. I like hard clamps, much like I was talking about earlier with tripods. I don't like twist locks on carbon fiber tripods, and I don't like any kind of twist lock on trekking poles either. I like things I can fix in the field. These have screws, so I can make them looser, I can make them tighter in the field, and if something breaks, I can likely put it back together. Same thing with the tripod. You can take apart that whole tripod with an Allen wrench set. You cannot do that with most carbon fiber and twist locking pieces of gear. I also segue and say, I recently just picked up, it is actually a mountain bike handlebar attachment for GoPros, and I put an additional attachment on it, and now I can mount my GoPro on my trekking pole and use it for all kinds of stuff. So this will be the first trip that I get to experiment with that. Okay, let's just get into the camera stuff right now. So I'm shooting this video on my main camera, so I can't show it to you. It's a Sony a7 III. I've used 4 or 5 different cameras for backcountry filming, and if there's enough interest, I can do a whole series on backcountry filming and camera gear and stuff like that, because I've made a lot of bad decisions that I've learned from over the years. It's a fairly expensive camera. It's about $2,500. If you don't have that much money, there's definitely cheaper options. You don't need to go that hardcore. But if you got the money, in my opinion, you don't need to go up to the R or the 9 for what we do in the backcountry. So the 3 is about as much money as I would want to spend. And because it's mirrorless, it's much lighter than regular DSLRs. I also shoot everything on one lens, 24mm prime lens, and it's a G series. So it's also expensive. It's about a $2,200 lens. I've tried a bunch of different setups. I've tried buying 2 cheaper lenses. I've tried buying zoom lenses. And for weight to cinematographic capabilities, in my opinion, one super high quality lens is your best bet. I think it forces you to be more creative because you can't rely on the zoom capabilities or multiple lens capabilities. It also keeps you a lot more lightweight. Also, with one setup, you always know what your rig is. When you have multiple lenses or have a zoom, if something happens quickly and you need to take a shot, you pull your stuff out and it's like, oh, maybe I need to put on a different lens. Oh, I forgot what the zoom was. Also, most mid-range zoom lenses will have descenting aperture capabilities. So the further out you zoom, the lower the aperture goes. Technically, the higher the aperture goes, but the less aperture you get. So you have less light gathering capabilities the more you zoom in. So we do a lot of like early morning and near dusk filming in the backcountry. So I like something with this is an f1.4 lens. And so no matter what time of day and no matter what I'm shooting, I know I can open wide open to f1.4 and I get really nice light gathering capabilities. This is another product that I wanted to share because I've been looking for this for months. This is a low pro Adventura SH120. It is essentially a camera holster that is the exact size of the Sony with a 24mm lens. I wanted something as small as possible, but with a decent amount of padding, so that when I am either flying or traveling in a truck or the hunt is done and I'm just hiking for 10 miles, I have the ability, or if it's at night and things are wet, I have the ability to pack my camera up, safe, sturdy, deep in my bag, and I don't have to worry about it. This thing was on sale for like 35 or 40 bucks. So if you have a DSLR with a medium length lens, and they have many different ones of these, but this was a godsend. Super cool piece of kit. In addition, I also use a GoPro Hero 7, and I primarily use 2 mounting systems. I either have a headband that I mounted here for point of view stuff, or I have a small Gorilla tripod that I can actually, when it's screwed onto the top of it, I just hook it into my Bino strap. So when I'm wearing this, and this strap comes around here, I essentially just tuck the tripod in here and I can get at it really quickly. And I like the Gorilla tripod because if I'm doing some time-lapse stuff, I can wrap it around a tree branch and you know, process an animal. It also works great to carry it, do some like point of view or talk to the camera type stuff. I tend to take 2 batteries for the DSLR, or sorry, the mirrorless, the Sony. They last forever. I can go hunt for 10 days and I probably wouldn't need to charge those 2 batteries. And I take 3 batteries from the GoPro. My GoPro's munch batteries. You can't film for any longer than an hour. I bring a 20,000 milliamp hour backup battery cell. That would charge an iPhone, a newer iPhone, 4 to 5 times. To give you an idea, I could probably charge 15 GoPro batteries with it. So if I'm headed to the backcountry in a week, that would mean I could charge my phone 2 or 3 times and probably do 5 or 6 GoPro batteries. That's really all I need in the backcountry. One more piece of kit that I find absolutely integral is the Peak Designs capture clip. So it's actually this clip right here. And with that, I'm essentially able to take my Sony and clip it into the shoulder strap of my backpack. And then with that there, I can hike, I can shoot my bow, I can do anything I would normally do, and just with a little lift, I've got my camera ready to go. So in my opinion, that is hands down the best way to carry your camera in the backcountry. Besides that, I've got the attachments that the camera can go on my tripod, the camera can go on the Peak Designs clip, and then I have another Gorilla Pod for the DSLR, but I rarely take it into the backcountry because I find it's quite heavy and unnecessary. The other decision that I made that allows me to not take a zoom lens is that I bring a phone scope adapter for both my binoculars and my spotting scope, so that if I'm only bringing one or the other, I can essentially use my optics as a super high quality zoom lens. And to be honest with you, unless you're gonna drop 4 or 5 grand on a super high quality zoom lens, I think you can get better footage with an iPhone with a 4K shooting capability and then really high quality Zeiss or Swaro glass. So I think that's a more versatile option. Plus you still get the advantage of taking, you know, pictures of game and all the rest of it. I think it provides better content. Okay, next piece of electronic gear I want to talk about is the Garmin InReach. They also sell a smaller mini one now that I wish I had, but it came out 6 months after I bought this one, so it'll be a while before I upgrade. This will essentially let you text via satellite to anyone on the planet from anywhere on the planet. It also pairs nicely with my iPhone, so you don't have to do like the old school scroll and text. You can just text right from your phone. They come in and go out on your phone. You just kind of clip this to your backpack and you can use your phone just like you're texting anyone. Super handy, critical for solo backcountry stuff. Next piece is one of my favorite pieces of backcountry gear. It is the Frog Togs Ultralight 2 rain gear system. I'll get into my clothing and layering system later, and I do have high-end rain gear, but in the majority of my hunts, I don't take it. It's too heavy. It's on the quieter end of the spectrum for rain gear, but it's still rain gear, so it's still not super quiet. Unless I'm day hunting blacktail here at home in the Pacific Northwest, I bring this stuff. Because normally, the only time you really care about rain protection in the backcountry is when you're sitting and glassing. Because if you're hiking, you're gonna get wet from sweat anyways. So you're better off to just leave your rain gear, get down as many layers as you can, hike and get wet, get where you're going, and then worrying about drying out a little bit, either swapping clothes or putting some rain gear on while you dry some stuff out at the fire. The caveat being Alaska or British Columbia. In those situations, you take the high-end rain gear. If it's anywhere on the planet other than those 2 locations, I bring this. The jacket and pant weigh 11 ounces together. Works perfect for those little drizzly clouds that like roll through for an hour or 2 and then they're gone. You're sitting and glassing, you throw this stuff on, you stay nice and dry. Also works great as a wind protection layer in the morning. Those crisp mornings when you're sitting and glassing and you're starting to get a little chilly, you throw in the jacket, cuts down the wind, you stay nice and warm. So highly recommend this. Usually I actually only bring the jacket. But if it looks like some decent rain in the forecast, I will bring both pieces. Up next, cooking system. Jetboil Minimo. My favorite cooking system, hands down. As far as weight to usability ratio, you're gonna be hard pressed to talk me into using anything else. Now, there are liquid gas options that are very intriguing for a variety of reasons, but as far as like just plug and play options, I like the isobutane. It's easy. I know how it reacts. Some people say they've had problems with it. I've hunted in Montana at -25 and this shit worked perfectly for me. You had to give it a good shake, but it still worked. I've used it in windy conditions. The container fits a liter of water, which is enough for 2 Mountain House. So even when you're with a partner, you can still get away with just bringing this single stove. So Jetboil, Mini-Mo, hard recommendation on this. To go together with that is this new micro light mug. I got it, I don't know who makes it, GSI Outdoors. I picked it up at REI before a hunt last year. This thing is super light and keeps coffee warm for a super long time. I love this thing. Some people might think it's a little bit extraneous to bring a thermos type mug, but it's got a great locking mechanism, never spills in my pack. I'm a big coffee guy, so I love the fact that I can wake up in the morning, fill this with a nice warm cup of coffee, and then I've got it in my pack for the rest of the day, and I don't have to keep breaking out my stove to make warm coffee. So, Microlight from GSI. Up next, Kill Kit. I use the Caribou Gear Carnivore 3 ultralight game bags. 5 game bags in here. To be honest, I'll probably only take 3 of them on the bear hunt. I could really get away with 2, so we'll see how adventurous I'm feeling. It's BC and I'm allowed 2 bears, so I'm going up there with 2 tags in my pocket. So I'll probably take all of these with me, and then depending on the situation that I'm going into, I might leave some at the truck. In addition to that, I use the Havalon Piranha replaceable blade knife. I'm kind of 2 minds whether I want this or a fixed blade, but the bottom line is I own this, so I use it, and it does work really, really good. And you don't have to fuck around sharpening a knife in the middle of processing an animal, which I like a lot. In addition, in here, I have some electrical tape, I have some paracord, and a couple of pairs of latex gloves, and a Sharpie, in case I have to fill out a tag. Let's talk food next. So, in here is 1.7 pounds. It is 3,200 calories. I pack the same thing every day on just about every hunt. I know what I like to eat, and I eat it on a regular basis. My supper is a Mountain House, not a Mountain House. I'm gonna be specific with you. It's a Backpacker's Pantry dehydrated meal. Their protein to weight ratio far surpasses anything else on the market. So Backpacker's Pantry. I'm trying to get at least 30 to 40 grams of protein in that evening meal. I did an Instagram post on my meal plans a while ago that has my exact macros, so I'm not gonna get into it here. I like moderate protein, moderate fat, high carbs for the backcountry. I do not believe in using fat as your primary fuel system in the backcountry. Unless your body is acclimated to ketosis, it's a waste of time and you're gonna feel lethargic and lazy and tired. Don't do it. With the activity that we do in the backcountry, we require carbohydrates. I'm not gonna get into the details why. Yes, there are exceptions to that rule, but you are likely not that exception. I'm not. So high carb, moderate protein, moderate fat. I keep most of my fats and protein for the later evening or early in the morning, and I try and space out the carbs throughout the day because I don't want my body to be bunged up trying to process protein and fat throughout the day. Also, timing my fats with my protein will slow down my protein absorption a little bit, and I'll be able to get, there'll be a higher bioavailability of that protein. I like Cliff Bars, Honey Stingers, Trail Mix. I get these blocks with caffeine from Cliff. My lunch is a green belly. I'll show you. These things are great. And for coffee, Starbucks Via. It's the best, in my opinion. They're called Meal to Goes, and there is 650 calories in this one bar. And they say to only eat half of it, but I eat the whole thing. So that's my lunch. For breakfast, I do 2 oatmeals, and I'll also take some powdered protein. And so I'll have a protein shake in the morning with 2 packs of Quaker oatmeal, normally maple and brown sugar, because I want the sugar and I want the carbs. So when I talked about my shelter, I did not mention my sleep system, so I will get into that now. I use a Thermarest NeoAir X-Lite. I have had it for 4 years. It has never failed me. It works perfectly, and Oh, it's buried in there, but I use Sea to Summit Aeros pillow. It's just a tiny little thing and it blows up and it's got like almost a nice donut shape to it so it doesn't slide off the pad and my head kind of fits in this little concave nook. Works super good. So I can't say enough about this. I've never sprung a leak. It keeps me nice and warm. It's got a good R rating. In addition to that, I don't have it out here, but I use an Enlightened Equipment Enigma quilt rated to 20 degrees Fahrenheit or -6 degrees Celsius. It's insanely ultralight. For those of you who don't know what a quilt is, it is essentially a sleeping bag with the back or the bottom cut out of it. The rationale for that being, insulative material in sleeping bags only work when there's loft, and if you're laying on top of it, it squishes it flat and the insulative properties don't work anymore. So the idea is your sleeping pad should insulate your back, and your sleeping cover, your sleeping pad or your bag or your quilt should insulate your top. So you can shave a lot of weight off your sleeping bag if you cut out the bottom. So it actually wraps around your legs, and then you have two straps that you wrap around your sleeping pad. So your pad and your bag all kind of become one. I've used it extensively over the last couple of years, and except for really, really cold situations, like I'm talking -10, -15, -20, the quilt blows the sleeping bag out of the water. Again, I love this concept of a weight to usability ratio. I don't mind if something is heavy if it's much more usable, but if I can keep something light while increasing that usability, that's even better. So ultimately, that's my filter for what I take and don't take. How usable is it for the amount of weight that it is? So in my opinion, a quilt kicks the shit out of a sleeping bag, especially the ones from Enlightened Equipment. They're really nice. Okay, this video is going on a lot longer than I thought it was. I was gonna dive into my Possibles kit and a whole bunch of other stuff that I may do another video on this later, and if you guys want more information on like the little tiny stuff I bring that makes my life better in the backcountry, let me know and I will do a whole video just on my Possibles pouch. I will touch on water though. So I use the 10-liter MSR dromedary bag, and I use this Platypus Big Zip in my backpack for actually carrying drinking water. And I use a SteriPen Adventurer Opti, I think it's called, for purifying my water. I've tried a bunch of different purification methods, and in my opinion, the SteriPen is just the best overall system. And I carry a small pack of Aqua Tabs just in case something malfunctions with my SteriPen. Okay, I'm gonna touch on boots real quickly because somebody asked me to. I have finally landed on the Beartooth 2s from Schnee's. They're fairly lightweight, they're fairly stiff. I like all leather boots, and I have Morton's and Aroma in my 1 foot, and they have a very wide toe box. I bought the wide ones specifically. Here's the deal with boots in the backcountry. Again, you're always gonna have to compromise. I like taking boots for what I might run into, not for what I know I'm gonna run into. So I'm wearing the boots that I'm gonna need for the 10 to 15% worse circumstances. So maybe I'm gonna have to if I'm going on an elk hunt, I need to be prepared to side hill with a 150-pound pack on my back, 110-pound pack, whatever. If that's the case, I need a stiffer boot. Some people would argue about ankle flexibility and calf strength and all this kind of stuff. For injury prevention alone, you are going to find that a stiffer boot is going to be more beneficial the heavier the load you are carrying. That being said, I have hunted in my Ultras, which are essentially a really flimsy running shoe that's basically a high top running shoe, and I've hunted in those when I was close to the road, or I was doing archery hunting, or I was with a partner that was going to be able to help me carry out the meat. So you have to assess it situation by situation and make the best decision you can given what you're being asked to do. So on this particular hunt, I'm going to be hiking extensively. I could be having a very heavy bag on my back, and I don't know yet if I'm hunting with a rifle or a bow. So that being said, I want like a medium to medium high stiff boot. I don't want to go all the way up to a sheep boot, but I don't want to be in running shoes either. So the Beartooths, I think, are like a 3 out of 4 on a flex rating. So they have a high. I also like something with a higher top because I can do deeper creek crossings without the water flooding into my shoe. So you kind of have to assess the circumstances and just make the best decision you can at the time you can. Okay, let's close out with clothes. And I'm gonna actually keep this fairly principle based because I feel like I've flown through this material, but I also feel like it's taken a very long time and I don't want to bore everybody to death. One highlight for me, this is a belt built by Arcade. They're like a fashion company. They're not even a backcountry company, but it's stretchy, and I looked for years to find the perfect backcountry belt. In my opinion, this is it. For a variety of reasons. You lose weight while you're hiking, your stomach tends to be bigger in the morning than it is in the afternoon. Hard webbed belts tend to bite into my hips when I'm carrying a heavy bag. So yeah, some type of stretchy belt is key. Here's all my clothes, including rain gear. And I probably won't take the rain gear. The vast majority of it is First Light. I don't think First Light is any better than Kuiu or Sitka or any of the rest. If you're buying camo gear from one of the top 5 or 6 companies, it's basically as good as all the rest. I personally prefer the First Light Fusion camo because I hunt in BC and I tend to hunt in the Southwest a lot, and that particular camo works great in both situations. I also find their merino is particularly comfortable. So it's really personal preference at that point. I will say I've been looking into a lot of Sitka gear lately, and when this stuff starts to break down and I need to renew, I think I'm gonna start exploring some Sitka options. I will basically only take the clothes that are on my back and 1 or 2 extra pieces. So I will wear 1 pair of pants in with 1 pair of boxers and 1 pair of socks. No extra boxers, no extra socks. I may wash those in a creek and dry them out while glassing one day. I may not, depending on the situation. I will then take 3 tops. I will have a lightweight merino top, a midweight merino top, and a heavier weight fleece top. I will normally only be wearing 1 to 2 of those at a time, and the other one will be in my backpack. Then I will have an ultralight puffy that will also be in my backpack for the most part. I might wear it at mornings, and I might sleep in it if it gets particularly cold. The longer I've hunted, the less clothes I take with me. I used to take a pair of extra pants, I used to take a couple of socks, a couple of underwear, and it's just, you realize that it does provide some additional comfort, but it's not necessary whatsoever. Okay, I have blown through a lot of information really quickly. If you have any additional questions or you want me to clarify any of this stuff, or if there was something I skimmed over that you think would be worth a whole video, drop a comment below and I'm more than happy to cover it in more detail in the future. And if everything goes well, you should see a fresh bear hunting video released on the channel here in the next couple weeks. So thanks for checking out. Like, subscribe, do the YouTube thing, or don't. I don't give a shit. I just do these videos because I like doing it. Thanks for watching.